OPO7's been out for a while. OPO7.5, on the other hand, only out for about a week and a half. But let's take a look at what this deck looks like in OPO7 before we jump into OPO8 here in the next few weeks. This is my Red Purple Luffy deck. If you don't know what Red Purple Luffy does, Red Purple Luffy is a 6k leader. Ooh, baby, 6k with 3 life. And if you have 0 Dawn cards on the field, or 8 or more Dawn, once per turn, you can activate his ability to add 1 Dawn from your Dawn deck as active. This means that you can go up to 9 Dawn when you're at 8 Dawn, and you can go up to 10 Dawn when you're at 9 Dawn. So this deck definitely likes to ramp to the golden number of 8, so you can go up to 9 to play some big spicy targets, but a pretty really fun leader. Being a 6k is pretty great because it does stop your opponent from attacking you, right? If they can't just swing 5k's likely, they have to either attach some Dawn or play some 6k characters. So that does make sense why he only has 3 life, as that is a good stat for a leader. Let's take a look at the 2Ks here first. We've got a good old set of 2Ks here. We've got first off the 4 Sanji blocker 2Ks. A great card here. It's a blocker when you need it to be. It's a 2K whenever else you need it. Pretty great. This does because this is a 6k leader, this will take you up to 8k. So opponent swings 7, this is, you just need a 2k to get out of it, versus normally if your opponent swings 7 as your lead, you're going to need a 2k 1k. Great card. Next we've got the remainder of the 2ks here. We've got 2 of the Mist Double Finger. So Double Finger does kind of fit as a dual package, right? So is a 2k leader as well as being a character that can trash a card from your hand and give you 1 Dawn rested. So this is a ramp effect as well. Typically I'm going to use this as a 2k, but in some situations it does come pretty clutch to be able to play this on your second turn, going second, to ramp yourself up to up a Dawn here, or on your 5 Dawn turn to ramp yourself up a Dawn to make sure that you can get up to 8 Dawn on your next turn, which allows you to get the 9 leader effect. Then we have 2 for Nosuke's. So this deck does have the Searcher Nami in it, so having 2k or having 6 of your 8 2Ks being able to be searchable is pretty great. For Nosuke does have that second ability that gives him rush. Not very useful, not used very often, but it could become could be a useful effect if you need to try to go for game potentially, and this is your only option. That finishes up with the 2Ks. Because we're a 6k leader, we don't need necessarily nearly as many 2Ks. There's a lot of priority on the 1Ks because typically your opponents are just going to be sitting 6k at lead. Next we've got the Nami here. This is our Searcher, 4 of the Searcher Nami. A lot of great targets in this deck. We've got 6 2Ks, we've got your Boss Monster Gear 5 Luffy, you've got Radical Beam, you've got Gum Gum Jet Gatling, you've got Zoro Juro. A lot of great targets for Nami, so obviously running her to make sure you find what you need, very strong. Next, we've got a little bit more of the ramp here. This is the ramp package that I'm running for this deck. First, we've got 4 Zoro Juros, and yes, I know it's a crime that I'm running 3 alt arts and 1 non-alt art, but hey, what are you going to do? Eventually, I'll get that extra alt art. But a nice little card here on your 3 Dawn turn, or on your 4 Dawn turn if you're going second, you can play him out. And then if your leader has 3 or less life when he attacks, you gain 1 Dawn active. And because Luffy starts off with 3 life, he's immediately activated, and so just a really great way for you to ramp, especially if your opponent doesn't have an answer for it before you're able to attack. Next, we've got probably one of the best, honestly the best ramp cards, and again, another sin, another crime I've committed. That there's 1 alt art and 4 alt arts. Now, I will say this alt art's a lot more expensive, so the fact that I don't have a playset of it makes a little makes a little bit more sense. But Bond Clay here being that 4 cost that ramps you 1 Dawn active, and then also having the bonus of being able to copy your opponent's character's attack when he attacks can make him a pretty good attacker if your opponent doesn't deal with him. Really great card. I love seeing this card in my hand, especially if I'm going second, because this means I'm going to get to 7 Dawn on my next turn and potentially play out like a Captain Kid. Next, we've got 2 little filler slots. So finding additional ramp in this deck that is useful, it kind of sits in these Gene Barts here. So Gene Bart is kind of what I consider like the filler slot. He could also just be 2 more of the Double Finger 2Ks if you wanted to go up to 10 2Ks, as it's a very similar effect. The difference with this is you actually need to have 5 Dawn when you play Gene Bart, because when Gene Bart comes in, you have to pay 1 Dawn to get a Dawn active. So he requires a Dawn investment to gain a Dawn. So if you are at 5 Dawn, you can do it. If you're only at 4 Dawn, this card kind of sucks. So definitely just an extra way for us to ramp if we're going first. But at the end of the day, it's a 1k, right? We need 1Ks in this deck to stave off 6k attacks. Next, let's take a look at the blockers here. I'm running a little bit of an interesting tech here. We're running 2 Baccarats. Baccarat, a card that literally saw absolutely no play. It's from OPO7, right? OPO7, yep. Because of red purple lull. Now that red purple's lull's gone, it doesn't matter if it's a 4K blocker, because now we know it just can't get bottom decked. But the awesome part about this effect is it's a blocker, and also on my opponent's attack once per turn I can trash one card from my hand, basically turn any card in my hand into a 2K counter, as this gives 2K power to a leader or a character during the battle. So she allows me once per turn on my opponent's attack to turn any card in my hand into a 2K. Very good when you run a lot of bricks. And it's a blocker. Who doesn't love blockers? Then we have 4 queens. Queen, again, the staple in purple decks as a blocker, but also just that draw 2. So Dawn -1, draw 2 cards, trash 1 card. This deck is pretty good about, like, I like later in the game being able to minus Dawn and then like still be at 8 or 9 Dawn and then activate Luffy's effect to get the Dawn back is pretty nice and pretty handy. And so these little -1 Dawn effects kind of let you do some shenanigans for that. So you're technically like at 11 Dawn on your 10 Dawn turn, which is pretty cool. Queen, great card. Next, let's kind of go into the boss monsters. So one of our great 7 cost curves is Eustace Captain Kid. He's an 8K for 7, and then on play or when he's attacking, he minuses 1 Dawn and gives your leader plus 1000 power for the whole turn cycle. So your turn and your opponent's turn. Really great card. Turns your leader into a 7K leader, which is pretty awesome. And he does it every turn, right? So every single turn, as long as your opponent doesn't deal with this, he's going to keep turning your leader into a 7K. If you get 2 on board, your leader's always an 8K every turn. It's basically playing a new gate every turn, which is incredibly strong. If you pair these up with new gate, you can get your leader even higher, like up to 9K, 10K, which is pretty crazy. Really great card. You really want to see this card, especially like if you're going first, because you can just play it on your 7 Dawn turn. If you're going second, if you ramp on 4, you can play it the next turn too, which is really strong. Let's get to the rest of the boss monsters here. What you'll notice is I love the number 3 because I'm running 3 Monkey D Dragons here. Monkey D Dragon, great fit. I think in the current meta, I do think potentially I'll either maybe go down to 2 or take this card out entirely for 08 because there are some new cards that are pretty solid for the deck as well. This does allow the deck to be very aggressive. So Monkey D Dragon's a 9K for 8, has a rush, comes into play, takes 2 of your rested Dawn and attaches it either to your leader or to one of your characters, kind of enabling 2 big swings. Really strong card, allows Red Purple Luffy to go aggressive, which is typically what you want to do, right? So keep pushing face as much as possible. Next, we've got what I consider one of the best cards in the deck, and you know, I say if you're not running this card, you're not playing this deck right. But I'm only running 3 of them, and that's Edward Newgate here. Like I said, I love the number 3 when it comes to my boss monsters. Honestly, this could be 4, and if I go into 08, I'm likely going to bump this up to 4 because this card is just so necessary to have. And this card running it twice in a row, so like Newgate into Newgate is really strong, incredibly strong. That second effect of being able to if you have 2 Dawn attached, being able to KO one of your opponent's characters with 3000 or power or less allows you to KO Rebecca's, lets you KO Choppers in the Radio matchup, just lets you get a lot of like really annoying blockers, which is pretty fantastic. And then obviously the bonus of being an 8K leader is good enough already. Then finally we have honestly in addition to Newgate, the other card that wins a lot of games, and that is Gear 5 Luffy. We're only running 3 again. 3 is my lucky number for this deck. Running 3 Gear 5 Luffys. I don't think I'd ever go to 4. You typically only want to see one of these, so like there's an argument for potentially running 2, right? Because you do have 4 Nami searchers to try to find one. Because typically you're only going to play this card once. You're going to play this card on the final turn of the game to try to end the game, because this does give you an extra turn as well as 2 additional swings, right? Your leader swing and Luffy swing has a pretty neat combo. Just because it does minus 10 Dawn and bottom deck all your board means that you can play this on your 10 Dawn turn as long as you haven't activated leader effect yet, and be able to go to 0 and then go back up to 1 with leader effect, right? Because leader cares if you're at 0 Dawn or 8 or more. And then you activate Luffy's effect to go up to 2 Dawn, which means on your following extra turn, you're at 4 Dawn, which allows you to go 10K, 12K, which is very strong and is a really good way to end games, especially. Next, let's go to events. We've got some pretty awesome events. One of the best events in the game is in this deck, and it's searchable, and that's Radical Beam. We got the fancy version of Radical Beam here. I think this is the premium collection, but anyways, everybody knows what Radical Beam does. And if you don't know what Radical Beam does, it's a classic card in the game, right? It's from the first set, and for 1 Dawn, if your leader's at 2 or less life, it gives plus 2K in general, and then it gives plus additional 2K to the leader or character if your leader's at 2 or less life. So because I'm a 3 life leader, it's likely that I'm going to be at 2 life very soon. So this card is 1 cost for 4K counter. Incredible card, absolutely incredible card. The trigger also gives your leader plus 1 1000 power during the turn. So if I trigger this, I could go up to 7, which is pretty great. Next, as you saw, we have a lot of clunky cards, right? A lot of bricks, a lot of cards without counters. So we need some ways to get rid of those cards if necessary to try to stay alive, and that comes in with the Gum Gum Jet Gatling. If I add more bricks to this deck, I'm likely going to go up to 4. Right now, I'm only running 3. And so, again, a 0 cost, trash a card from your hand, give something plus 3k. Really great card. It does have a nice trigger that sometimes comes into effect. It does ramp you a Dawn, which is pretty great, especially if you need a ramp in a specific, like if you're going first. Then finally, to round it off, we have the card that wins games, especially against Black Yellow Luffy, because they forget this card exists, and that's Diable Jambe. 1 cost event, you can choose a Straw Hat crew type leader or character card, and your opponent cannot block that card during this turn when it attacks. So you could do this on Gear 5 Luffy and do like a, let's do the math. So you'd have 4 Dawn open on the turn, you play Gear 5 Luffy. You could swing 15k unblockable Gear 5 Luffy. You could also play this on your leader on a 10 Dawn turn and also do 15k unblockable. This card is amazing. It really catches people off guard. It is definitely one of the best cards. Let's go over matchups real quick for this deck here. Red Purple Law's gone. So that was its hardest matchup. It was one of the reasons this deck wasn't seeing any play is Red Purple Law just went wide too fast, and because you're a 3-life leader, you're often going to be at 2, and then Kid Killer's just going to slap you. So Red Purple Law's gone. This deck is like pretty solid against a lot of other decks just because it's able to go fast and kind of stay over top of them. I would say the black decks are relatively hard just because they have really great options for destroying your high cost characters. Any deck that can't take out your high cost characters will suffer against this deck. I am a little afraid of Dofi. I'm a little afraid of Reiju. Basically any deck that is like a pseudo Red Purple Law deck, the deck that can go fast and go tall, does scare me a little bit just because the weakness of this deck is just taking 6k hits, right? Because they're just gonna keep sending 6ks at you, not go 7, just keep going 6 to just like knock out your hand, right? And once your hand's gone, you're kind of just dead. So that can be a little scary. Bonnie also like is a hit or miss. You can definitely beat Bonnie pretty easily, but if Bonnie plays a Zoro and then like you don't have a window to be able to kill them the turn after, and they kill you with they like threaten you with the Zoro, you could potentially die pretty hard to Zoro. Zoro just kind of wins them the game. Black Yellow Luffy, if they are really aggressive early on, like they could potentially kill you if you just have like a very clunky hand, but like usually you're just kind of like relying on Diable Jambe to finish the game. So that matchup's not too bad, just because they do rely, like they take the lead up to 9k and they do rely on blockers, and so if they're smart, they're gonna typically try to stay up to 1 life against this deck. If you play against a really good Black Yellow Luffy, you're potentially gonna struggle, but it honestly just depends on what you draw. With that in mind, that is the deck list for 09. I don't even have the cards over here, but I was looking at Charlotte Lindland and Rayleigh as potential options for 09, and taking Gene Bard out, adjusting some ratios of some other cards. But yeah, that is the Red Purple Luffy deck. With that in mind, if you enjoy this type of content, want to see some 08 content in the future, definitely leave a like and subscribe to the channel as well. With that in mind, thanks everybody for watching, and if you are playing in the locals this week, take this deck out for a pilot and have fun. Thanks everybody.